So yeah, I'm going to be talking about how to get your data about names out of your Islandora site so that you can do stuff with them. And I've got an Islandora site. Let me just share my screen. There we go. All right, here is my main browser window. So this is a clone of the Island Live site, which is an actual site that I'm working on migrating. And we have some like 488 books in this collection. This is only showing the published books, which are 265, but all of them have full metadata about them, including contributors in the linked agent field. So when they're in the linked agent field, they're stored as taxonomy terms, which means that they each have their own page. Like this is Margaret Campion's page, and it'll list the one book that she is involved with. But to actually see the list of them, you need to go to a different section of your site under structure, taxonomy. And then we have various name vocabularies that are going to be applicable. So we separated out, I have conferences because some of our books related to conferences. We also have corporate bodies, families, and down here are person. So most of my names right now are in the person taxonomy, and I'm going to work from there, dealing with just the persons. If you have stuff in corporate bodies and other things that you need to export as well, then you'll need to do that in a separate step, but it'll work just about the same. So this is how it shows us the list of taxonomy terms right now. It looks like it is alphabetically ordered, but that's probably more about the order in which they were entered, because taxonomy terms can be reordered within their vocabularies. But there is no built-in way to just say, like, give me a list in CSV. So that's what we're going to be building today. Just one thing that you may note is if you go to Taxonomy Manager, which is another menu item that's made available by the Taxonomy Manager module, then you can see something that might be useful for your purposes. So I'm going to go to Person again. And it will list all of these, which if you select them, you can edit them right there. So this is an easier way to edit your taxonomy terms, but it is not super great at doing the export. So with these taxonomy terms, we might have more than just a name. You might have subject headings or NACO authority file, URLs in here. You might have alternate names or descriptions, birth or death dates, all sorts of stuff. And when you use this taxonomy manager to export, all you get is their names. You don't even get, and this is another important thing, the term ID. I didn't talk about that earlier. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see it. 1 second. I just need to, Sorry, Zoom is in the way of me doing what I need to do. There we go. Back under, you go to taxonomy, person, list terms. Each term has a term ID. And so that appears in the URL after taxonomy/term. So this one is /58, term 58. If you are exporting and re-importing terms, I'm pretty sure that you need to know what the term ID is. So that's why our method is going to involve that. Okay, so the main way that we do exported lists of things is in views. And views is a very powerful tool in Drupal. It's core Drupal. So the kinds of stuff that I'm going to be showing you, you can use for all sorts of other Drupal entities or other Drupal content that you want to be able to view in a certain way or export in a certain way. So I'm going to add a view, and it'll be called names export. So I like to suggest people add descriptions to their views. And it just really helps contextualize, like, what is this thing? Are we actually using it in the site? Was it made for like a one-off administrative purpose? Can we delete it? These are questions that I often encounter when I'm looking at a Drupal site that was built, 5-10 years ago. And so having these descriptions make it so much easier to make decisions about what to do with this. So I'm going to call it demo view to show how to export and export name content for manipulation and re-import. We won't show the re-import part today, but it can be done with Workbench. So here's the second, the most important choice that you have to make when you're making your view is this drop-down list. And by default, it is content, which means nodes. So if I did this, I could, for instance, see all of my book content because those are repository item nodes. And usually your main content will be your main stuff in your site will be content. But for this, we're looking at taxonomy terms. So remembering to change this, you have to do this right away. Once you start the view, you cannot go back and change it. And then I can say of type, and this is my list of vocabularies. So for me, I'm going to limit it down to person. And I'm not going to, well, maybe I can't sort anything right there. The next sections are, you can create a page, a block, and a REXT export. I usually start with creating a page. That way there is a place on my site. In this case, it'll be /names-export, where I can go and see a human readable version of this view and all its output. The key thing that we're going to make to actually export the content is not a page, but it's going to be linked to the page. So by default, it'll display 10 items. I usually leave it at that, knowing that the export that we're going to do will take everything. And using a pager is just fine. So I'll save and go into the view. So this is the views interface. And it can be pretty daunting because there's a lot of stuff going on. In general, the first column tells it, okay, so what are you getting? How am I going to display it? What fields should I use? What fields should I display? Should I have any filtering or like restrictions on what content shows up? And then how do you want to sort it? So for us, let's take a look at, by default, it's showing our content in no particular order. Maybe I will sort by name. And each, so some of these alternatives that are coming up, so alternate name, that's another field that we have on taxonomy terms. This one appears in geolocation, so we don't, that's not actually going to work for us. If I had wanted to sort by alternate name, I could, but it's not very well populated, so it wouldn't be a good choice. But if I scroll down, I see the one that I really want, which is this name, which is on taxonomy term, and not taxonomy term revision. That could lead to more complications. But if you are doing something where you're showing revisions of stuff, then you would be using that. I generally ignore the revision things for almost all of my views. So I'll select name for our sort, and then I can sort ascending, so A to Z. If I wanted to, I could expose this to visitors and let them change it, which means there'll be potentially a drop down. How do you want to sort this view? And people could change that. But this is an administrative view. I'm not going to use that. I just want it in some semblance of order. So here now it's sorted alphabetically. And I'm going to add another field here because I want some more information to show up. I mentioned the term IDs are usually really important, so I'm going to find that. And I don't know if it's TID or, okay, TID works. Every content or every entity type in Drupal has an ID. And sometimes like the node ID is called a NID for short, and the term ID is called a TID for short. But it is term ID. Similarly, like media IDs have a MID. But it's all the same like core ID for that entity in its Drupal form. If you ask Drupal, give me media 17, it'll know what you mean. So I'm going to configure this field to not show 1,000 marker. Default's fine. I'll keep the display prefix and suffix and just go down here. And so here, remember, Mrs. Lauren McNevin was term 58, so that's showing up there. Now I want to, I think this is all the information I'm going to suggest we get, because some of the things that I might want to do with this are, let's see, okay, we won't find it right here, but I know for sure that I've got Georges Arsenault in my list of taxonomy terms, just under G, like his name in normal straight version. But I wanted to keep it, I wanted to, you know, harmonize everything to use it in the inverted form, Arsenault Georges, with his birth date there. So that's one of the reasons why having these term IDs is going to be really useful. When I'm doing the harmonizing, I'll be able to know, okay, I want to replace all instances of this by this, and doing that with term IDs is a little bit easier. And so I could also clean up if there were misspellings of any particular names. Let's see, I don't see any right now. Yeah, I should have checked out if we had any terrible misspellings. Oh, there we go. Look, there's a 2 Belcourt GA, and one has a hyphen for Georges Antoine, and one does not have the hyphen. So I'll probably want to clean those up and harmonize everything to use just one of them. So what I want to do now is make a REST export, or not a REST export, my bad, a data export. First, I'm going to save my view. Anything that you do within this view's interface is kind of cached. So it won't take action on the actual view. If I were to go to names export, the stuff that shows up here doesn't change until you save that view, but it does store all your changes, and it knows who is doing stuff to this view. So if somebody else was logged into the site and came into, where am I? Names export, and came in to try to change the names export, they would see a red banner saying, this view is currently being edited by admin. You cannot change it unless you like override and like delete all of my changes. So it's kind of cool, and it's really useful because you can make some changes in here. You can see in the preview if they're going to work or not, and then you can click save to like absolutely, you know, make those changes permanent. Well, not permanent, you can undo them, but you have to know what they were. Okay, so we made a page. We're going to add a new thing. And the one we're going to use is data export. This is provided by the data export views data export module. And it allows us to make things that are, oh, not there, here, settings, CSV, HAL JSON, I don't actually know what that is, like various types, other formats, XML, JSON, JSON LD. But CSV is the one that I usually use, and as metadata people, I'm sure we're all overly familiar with and love CSVs. So it's going to show fields, and if I scroll all the way down, oh, it can't, validation errors. Okay, right. So it's telling me that it needs a path. So I will set it a path. Its path, the path of the previous one was names export. So I might make this names-export-CSV. While I'm here, I also need to set up a file name. I often forget to do this because usually the stuff after you've set up the path like doesn't really matter, but this really matters. You do need to give it something. So names export.csv. I usually click store this in the public files directory. Obviously, if you are dealing with data that can't be publicly viewed, even by accident, you wouldn't want to do that. And I will also say download immediately. And I'm not going to do anything about this redirect stuff. The download immediately, just like, you'll see what happens. It causes, like, as soon as you go to that URL, a thing pops up and says, do you want to save this file? So I will save those. And under authentication, I'm not going to set anything right yet. I will if I have to, but I don't think I have to. And then attach to, I'm going to attach it to the page, which is the page that we just made, the only other display here. All right, and then one more thing that I'm going to take a look at are the export settings here at the bottom of the middle column. This only shows up for data export view displays. And this is where you can change it to use batches. So when you're doing stuff with hundreds of thousands of objects, you will probably need to use the batch. And then you can set the batch size to however many you need. I probably have like in the order of 1,000 things, so it probably won't matter too much for mine, but if you have a lot more names or whatever that you're exporting, using this batch is really important. And then for limit, I want to keep it at no limit. That gets all of them. If I change this, it would be like a pager. It would get the first 10 or the first 1,000 or whatever, but I want to get all of them. So I'll hit save. And then up here in my URL, I'll throw in names export CSV, and it will export my data. Okay, so I guess because of the batch thing, it didn't download immediately, but now I've got the link here in this message to download the file. So I'll save names export just to my desktop and take a look at it. And it's got my list of all these names. Let's see how many there are. 424 names. And it's got each name with its ID. So you can then import this into your favorite spreadsheet editor or whatever, and have your way with it. All right. Are there any questions?
What can you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Chris. I had a question, Rosie. So
Yeah.
this was specifically for names. So
Yeah.
let's say you wanted to do one for corporate bodies. Do you have to create a brand new view, or can you tweak this one?
Great question. It's really easy to tweak. So I'll just go back to the view. Down here under filter criteria is the one where we said vocabulary equals person. I can just click that and change it to family or corporate body or whatever's needed, or select all of them if that's what you want to do.
And if you do select all, I would also add to the fields you export the content, the vocabulary name as well, so you know where it came from.
Yeah, so let's get more of those, add fields, vocabulary, apply. So there's showing who's the corporate bodies. And I don't know if, oh, I've got a family, the Beck family. There we go.
And if the vocabulary that you've included doesn't have a particular field that you've selected to export, it'll just not put anything there. It won't throw any errors or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Which does make URIs interesting, because we do have two flavors of URIs.
Yes.
In Drupal. So if you're trying to do like Islandora models and subjects at the same time, those are two separate URI fields. You'll need to include them both.
But the kinds of names that you'll get under names, I think we are consistently using the authority URI.
Yeah.
Authority sources is what we call it. Yep. And it appears in all of these. Yeah. So I don't have any data in here. So it's just going to be a blank field at the end, but there we go.
I know you're not planning on talking about, you know, the whole re-import process right now, but with the assumption that you can then re-import things, what types of changes can you do to this spreadsheet that you could then bring back into, like, can you delete terms, or is it more just for correcting terms?
So correcting terms is the easiest one. Obviously, if I, decided, like one of these, say, had like the wrong dates in them, I could change the dates here and then easily upload that. For these two, if I wanted to delete one of them and, get everything to use the other, that would be, I would need to like take this guy out. I'd Control X him and put him in a new spreadsheet by himself where it's like things to delete. And then I would also like take this information and find out what nodes needed to be updated to point to the other guy, to 1200.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so I guess one of them would be like delete this entity, and then a separate thing would export all the nodes that pointed to these like deleted or to be deleted entities, and include like the field that points to them. So include the linked agent field, and then I'd go through those and update their linked agent field. Instead of 1322, I'd use 1200, and then update those by using Workbench, cause all the nodes to point to the correct thing. And then I'd probably go in and delete the incorrect one.
Okay.
Another
That
thing
makes
that you
sense.
can, yeah, another thing you can do on this view, you could also set up an aggregate query to actually show you how many things point to this particular item. So if you decided that you wanted to, delete the one that had 5 and keep the one that had 150, just make updates to the other one. But that gets to more advanced views, structuring, and yeah.
Yeah. Should we do that? Is that worth it? Hovering over relationships. All right, let's try. Oh, no, what was it? Linked agent. We don't have linked agent here. Okay, my idea was to set up a relationship to nodes that pointed to it, but I'm not finding a way to do that immediately. I might have to start over and build a view based on content. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because it's yeah, the contextual filter is more effective at the reverse relationships. So yeah, you're right. I probably misspoke that you're not going to be able to do that very easily here.
You know what? Like here there's content using field frequency, field genre, field geographic subject. I think it's just that the linked agent, no, the typed relation field type doesn't cause this backwards linking to be an available relationship in views. I know.
Rosie, I wonder if this would be something that would be good for next meeting as well. So that way, we can, people can play around and look to see how views are and get more familiar with it. And so the next time when you talk about doing the aggregate, they're more familiar with what's in the background. So
I can also, it would be really good for me to go through the names that I have and find some things and then show like how we would do the round tripping, do the second part of getting it back into Drupal.
The other minor gotcha I would mention here with this is that if you have anything that are HTML entities, such as ampersands, Drupal will export it as the HTML entity, so ampersand AMP semicolon. And Workbench, you can't send that back in. You have to correct those. So here it displays because it's displaying as an HTML page, and so the HTML page is sending it out. So if you look in your text document, Rosie, you should be able to see that ampersand. Oh, did you already delete the? Okay.
No, I just have to do a new file because my first one was the names, and this is now the corporate bodies.
Yep. The other thing I've done is you can add a date string to the end of the export, so it always gives you a unique one every time you hit download.
You know that thing that I was talking about where your views like caches the changes, and I didn't save the view. All right. There we go. Save the changes. Okay. No, I don't know why.
Oh, did it work on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I know like REST export might do a different thing where it escapes stuff in nastier ways.
Because we've used this module and it's escaped stuff. So that's
Oh,
odd that that didn't happen there.
kind of
I'm
good
gonna have to go
though.
back and look. And see what's
There
going on.
might be an option for that, I guess.
Because we had that issue where we have an export and it is translating all those and we have to fix them back. And I posted to Workbench about how that was happening. But it's odd to see that it's not happening here. Makes me
Natalie,
wonder what we did.
I don't know. Natalie asked in the chat where the recording of this will be posted. We'll probably link to it from the URL from the agenda, and when it's there, I'll also post to the Slack channel just to say it's up and it's updated. Yeah, I am not sure where this would have been. Oh, here we go. No, maybe not. So under the place where we chose CSV, there's some settings that, you know, are the usual CSV settings. Stripping HTML would take out things like span or I or whatever, which it's not useful. I'm not sure where that would come from.
I'll have to look into this more then.
Very complicated. All right, any questions? Last chance before we stop the recording. Hey. Stop recording.